Welcome to Blind Shovel, an arts and music podcast. Today I sit down with Patrick Kyle, illustrator and cartoonist. Enjoy. Yep.
Hello? Is it working?
All good.
Perfect.
How you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm all good.
Cool.
I'm enjoying my life.
Yeah, me too.
What'd you do today? What does your day in, day out look like? You're in Toronto, right?
Yeah. Up until recently, I was kind of just hanging out. I was in between a lot of projects, but I started teaching again today.
Really?
Yeah, I teach at OCADU here in Toronto. I usually teach in the summer semesters. So it's like 2 6-week semesters. We meet twice a week. And it's like a comics and graphic novel class.
Interesting. Do you find that teaching comics is easy for you? I'm allowed to write all my own curriculum and assignments and stuff. So it's very tailored to my own sensibilities and tastes. So yeah, it's not too bad. I was a little stressed out this morning. I always kind of feel like the students are going to be really unreceptive to the content, but it's always the opposite. They're always kind of stoked or really into the possibilities of it. And I really try to stress that with them, that it's there's a lot of possibilities in comics and a lot of different ways to approach it. Yeah, that makes me think, do you have any people in there who just want to do Marvel and DC stuff? And are you equipped to kind of aid them in that process?
I haven't actually yet. Today I had 2 students who mentioned that they were really into mainstream stuff. And I don't know, I'm I don't keep up with that stuff. I'm not super familiar with what's going on in that world, but try to assist them in every way I can. But I do kind of push them to kind of forget what you know about comics coming into this class and sort of look at everything, look at all the material I'm showing them, and try to adapt to the material rather than go with what they already know about comics.
Yeah, what do you think is a really bad comic? And I don't mean name something specific, but I have this weird, it's a strange hang up where if I feel that a comic is trying to be something else, like just a storyboard for a TV show or a movie, I think that's bad.
I really dislike that too. That's something I stress with my students, that thinking of comics as being just an avenue to animation or film, or being adjacent to those things, is kind of a limiting way to look at it.
So how do you instill that? What do you think is the strength of comics in an age where people have the attention span of, we'll use any metaphor, but just a shorter attention span, you're competing with some really sugary mediums, even film. So how can comics survive in I think about this a bit.
Yeah, honestly, I'm not sure. I think it's there for you if you want it. And I don't know. I think the exciting thing about paper printed comics is the tactility of holding a book and being able to kind of pore over it and look at all the illustrations over and over again, and go back and forth as much as you want with it. I don't know. There's less opportunity to do that in a time-based medium like animation or film. Obviously you can just rewind it really easily, but it's not quite the same experience as being able to look at an illustration for as long as you want, or or for like a comics maker to like just like play with the page and like encourage the reader to read it in a really specific order or like kind of in a non-linear way.
Do you feel that like your life identity is a comic artist?
I don't know. No,
No?
I don't think so. Like, I mean, I think that's like maybe how people think of me, or that's like definitely the world I have my feet like most firmly planted in. But I don't know. I don't really like read all that much. I don't read a lot of comics anymore. Just, I mean, I was really, really into it like, 10 or 15 years ago. And like when I was growing up, I was really, really into it. But
you make music as well, right?
I do, yeah. I play drums in a band called Scooter J.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it's like kind of like a proto-punk style band, like maybe like I don't know, with like some like Thin Lizzy vibes. But I play guitar too. I have like a secret black metal project that I've been doing for a long time.
But your career, I mean, since you're teaching it as well, it seems like comics are the main planet, the main gravitational pull.
Yeah. I used to teach, when I started teaching, I was teaching like illustration courses and that's what I studied.
In school?
Like, yeah. When I was growing up, like comics was my thing. Like I made a decision like very early in my life that I wanted to draw comics. And like, I don't know, I'm not as stubborn as I used to be, but when I was a kid, I was very like fixated on that goal.
Like pure, like you were just going to be that thing.
Yeah, that was it. That was like, yeah, I didn't really waver from it. But then when I got to art school, I applied to the illustration program, got into that because it seemed like the closest thing to comics to me, or like the work that I saw people making in that program, just seemed like the most comic like, it was like line work focused.
Sure.
Drawings.
Sometimes the closest thing is the furthest thing, because I went to school for illustration as well with probably a similar thinking. Mm-hmm. But
yeah, I got really into the illustration thing though. And
nice.
It took a bit of coaxing out of me. But I don't know. I think I kind of needed that. I needed to kind of be like broken down a little bit and taken out of my comfort zone. And I think I started like drawing a lot better. And like, I don't know, I was able to make much better comics after I had like focused on just doing like illustration and like standalone images for a while.
Have you become what your teenage self thought you were going to be? Like, have you made, you've made many books, right? Like you've done the damn thing.
Yeah. I don't know. Like as a teenager, like I didn't really know where I was going or what I was going to do. I grew up in like a suburb, just like an hour outside of Toronto. And I had a really hard time like seeing beyond it. I never really never visited the city much as a kid, like, kind of just hung around my hometown and like stayed home a lot. I didn't really know, like, I definitely like wanted to be, like a traditional comic artist for a while and like do superhero stuff. Or then like when I got into manga in high school, I wanted to just sort of do my own like adventure action series or whatever and that kind of thing. But I don't know.
So what was there a book that shifted that? Because I have a similar, like I would just like draw Spawn, so like
yeah,
which is like a foot, I guess it's a foot out and a foot in. Something about Todd McFarlane I just liked, and or like even Frank Miller, just like those guys who seemed different a little bit within that kind of world of Marvel and DC. Mm-hmm. But then when I read Yuichi Okayama when I was like much later, that made me realize, you could do some things I didn't think you could do with comics. Even it sounds so stupid because like once you understand, you could do basically anything with comics. It's goofy, but yeah, for some reason it took me reading that book Travel and being like, you could do that.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Exactly. I was into similar stuff. I was into like Paul Pope
Yeah.
and like Frank Miller and stuff. Like when I was started high school, I was reading like just like the popular comics of the day, like Scott Pilgrim and things like that. I was really into like Corey Lewis. I don't know if you remember
No,
that guy.
I don't know that.
Yeah. But yeah, the book that kind of like broke me was Shrimpy and Paul and Friends by Mark Bell.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if
Is
you know that one,
he
but
Canadian?
that's right. Yeah, he's
Yeah.
from I think he's from London, Ontario initially. But reading that book, I don't know, it definitely like reminded me that comics could be anything. It reminded me of like stuff that like I was drawing when I was like a little kid. It had like that sort of like it had a lot of like joy and like revelry and fun, and you never really knew what was going to happen next. The drawings were like, really off the wall and like really psychedelic.
It's funny because for me, like I look at Yokoyama now and it's the opposite of what you just described, It's like there's something kind of intellectual and tongue in cheek about it that I guess when I was in art school, I was in that mindset. So, because I didn't want to be an illustrator, so I was trying to look for things that were not that. But shamefully, I just like, and I was going to ask you about how you feel about those books now, Mark Bell, but I just like don't have any interest in reading even new Yokoyama. I don't know why. It's no assessment of his work. It's just like I need more humanness or something now.
Yeah, I mean, I still love Mark Bell. I keep up with what he's doing. Like I'm not as like eager, really. Sorry, snuck my headphone out. Not as like eager to read like any comic, I guess. But I always like grab the new Yokoyama when it comes out, or grab the new Mark Bell book. But
what's funny is I remember I like CF and his work a lot, but I remember being shown that before Yokoyama, but just not getting it in some ways, and then realizing what Picture Box was. This was like freshman year of college. I was fortunate to have a good friend of mine. I didn't know who he was until that day, but he showed it to me. And I was still in that mindset of like, this is drawn like really shitty, like this, I don't even know how to describe that shift. But I think up until that point, in high school, you're trying to draw prove to yourself you can draw.
Mm-hmm.
So you look at other people who do the same thing and you're saying, oh, they're proving they can draw,
Yeah. Yeah. Like to be honest, like, I don't think I'm really that good at drawing. Like I was never like, I could never make those technical drawings, or like I could never be as good as like my favorite manga artist or whatever. So yeah, seeing the artists that were a little more like embracing of, drawings that are less manicured, drawings that are a little more like, spontaneous, like off the cuff, like CF or Ben Jones, or any of the Fourth Thunder dudes like Brinkman or Chippendale. Like that stuff was kind of a revelation for me, because it just like, it wasn't so much about like making it perfect. It was more about like a specific type of energy in the drawing and like a gesture, and that really resonated with me.
Is there a person that you were next to when drawing and you realized, oh, I'm not good at drawing, this person's really good at drawing? Because for me, Jesse Ballmer, my friend, like I would draw with him and I realized, oh, I'm not good at drawing. This was when I was like 25 or something. That was a useful lesson. And he's still much better at drawing than me. It's like, you have to understand your strengths. And for a lot of people who are good artists, it has nothing to do with their technical ability to draw, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So was there anyone around you were like, oh, this person was born to draw. I happen to draw to facilitate interesting ideas or stories, but it's not what I'm born to do in some sense.
Yeah. In college, like both my friends, Chris Kuzma and Jeanette LaPalme, were both just like, so
Yeah.
so good at what they do. And I mean, I feel that way about everybody. I feel that way about like all of my peers. Just like,
What do you do with that realization?
I don't know. It's kind of tough. Like I used to compare myself a lot to other artists. I used to feel, a bit like bogged down or a bit like stifled by that, or just like just kind of like what's the point if I can't be this good or whatever. But I don't know. I kind of just like try to keep my eyes on my own paper and like stay in my own lane now, because I don't know. It's not really about like what it really looks like in the end. It's kind of like more about the process for me.
Interesting.
It's just kind of like something that I have to do.
Drawing.
Yeah.
You have to do it to be sane, this kind of thing? Or
yeah, I think so. It's like a really kind of meditative thing for me. It's like getting into that flow state where you're like just kind of like not thinking about anything, just like letting the lines happen.
Yeah.
That's like, really, I don't know. It's like a really exciting feeling for me.
No, that's great. I kind of miss the anxiety of being in the 20s and comparing oneself, because there's a lot of growth that happens there, maybe in the wrong directions at times. But there's like I do feel in my 30s, I'm just like, I don't give a fuck. I don't care. I don't know anything about what's going on in the scene, or like, I don't know what the coolest book is right now.
Yeah, me neither. I don't know. Like, did I then either? I don't know. Like,
well, you're more like, I assume that you were more in the scene of like the fairs and all that, right? You did all this, right?
Yeah, a little bit. I've kind of like taken a backseat from that. Yeah, I haven't been like tabling. I mean, like obviously the pandemic like put a big monkey wrench into that whole thing. But since then, I've been attending festivals as like just sitting with my publishers, but I haven't been like tabling and selling my own zines really.
Yeah,
that's felt really good.
Yeah. When you're teaching, what do you see coming up? Is there specific things that the people you're teaching are kind of looking at? Are there trends? Without Tumblr, well, I guess it exists, but like, I don't know. I feel like Tumblr was like, it really distilled aesthetics somehow. And then it was like clear what a Tumblr aesthetic was. It was clear what the trends were. Maybe I'm just older, so I just don't know. But I'm kind of curious where comics, you may have some insight by teaching kids, like, where's it going? Where can it go? I don't know.
I'm not totally sure in terms of comics. Like, I don't know. I don't see like a lot of I feel like a lot of the cool kids, or like the hip art school kids, like aren't really like thinking about comics much anymore. There's like, they've moved on to like tattoos and like ceramics and stuff. So I feel like a lot of that kind of work that was kind of like, I don't know, that had the kind of like the same energy that like, we were seeing like back in the day, going to like BCGF and stuff like that, Brooklyn Comics and Graphics Fest. Yeah, I don't know. It's like, it's gone to other avenues of art. And like, I think the kind of like general, like the popular aesthetic in comics is sort of a little more like, just mainstream friendly, I guess. It's less like, maybe a little less adventurous. And, a lot of the comics are kind of like, have you heard of Webtoon?
I don't think so.
Okay. I only found out about it through students of mine, but it's like a really popular Korean comics website where it's actually a really intriguing format. Like the comics have like an infinite scroll, so you can kind of just read a comic forever. They just go on and on, which could be a really cool thing, but the aesthetic is like, it's very like safe and mainstream, and like a lot of the comics are kind of like slice of life type stuff, and a lot of my students are kind of into that type of thing, and like
Interesting.
Comics in that vein.
I'm looking at it right now. The infinite scroll is kind of, wow, it's odd.
Mm-hmm.
That's a shame. I like when there's 2 pages and they're next to each other.
Yeah. It's definitely a different format.
So you teach, you're making fine art at the moment as well, right?
Yeah, a little bit. I had a show in Los Angeles at Heavy Manners Library, which was run by my friend Matthew James Wilson. Really cool space. It was called A Sufficiently Grotesque Elfish Aspect. It was like 8.5 by 11 pieces that were all like matte medium transfers of drawings that I did. It's like a technique that I used to use a lot, like in my early career, like back in the day. Yeah, back in the day when I was like posting like Flickr and stuff, like that was like how I worked. It's like a really cool analog technique with like a lot of just creates like a really tactile surface with like a lot of layers, and I don't know. I stopped doing it for a long time because I was doing more digital work like in my illustration career, but then kind of missed that that tactile aspect, and just think it's kind of important for like people to see work in real life and have it like, you know, look a little different maybe than it does on a screen.
Yeah, definitely. I think what happens when you get illustration work is you naturally gravitate towards quicker, more efficient digital processes, just so the art director can, you know, they need that.
Totally.
I remember trying to do illustration by like painting everything and using these really garish neons and then scanning it in and being like, why did I do any of this? It's not even scanning.
Yeah. That was actually one of the reasons why I stopped doing my illustration work analog, because I got a new scanner and it couldn't pick up any of the colors anymore.
Yeah.
But I later found out that there's like 2 major types of scanners, and like one picks them up like okay, and then most modern scanners are like CIS style contact image sensor, and then the older ones are CCD. Like I don't remember what that acronym stands for, but those ones, the CCD ones, I believe, are the ones that are a little more. They use like old digital camera technology rather than like LEDs or whatever. So I might have had the 2 mixed up, but CCD scanners are like much better for picking up colors. So I had to like scour Craigslist and like find a good old scanner.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
So you're like an elf? Are you like an elf or a gnome? Or are these just the kind of things? What is that? Is that like a reflection of your personality and how you live? Or is it something from when you were younger, like D&D world or something of that nature?
I don't know. I mean, like, my parents are from Ireland.
Oh, okay.
I was really, I was really into Magic the Gathering and still am into Magic the Gathering. But I don't know. There's just like something about elfing that is like really intriguing to me.
Elfing?
Yeah.
What is that? That's a verb?
Yeah, just as of now.
Okay. I didn't know. Like anything can be anything in the present tense. So I wasn't sure if there was like a set of actions that would clarify.
I'm not really sure what I mean by that, but I just like, I often find myself like wanting to illustrate these little mischievous characters and with like pointed ears and stuff. So,
and that's been consistent, right? These creatures. They're like curious. Are they anxious or existential in some way?
I think they're kind of like both of those things. I don't know if I can elaborate on that anyway.
It just is what it is. You don't really get into it, right?
Yeah, my comics are like extremely like a stream of consciousness.
Do you
focused.
move page by page?
Yeah. I don't do any preliminary writing really. Like none of my comics that are in print like started with a script or anything. They just happened on the page.
Have you tried that before? Like writing a thing or even knowing the end of something and then going there?
Yep. I have a project right now that is based on a short story that I wrote, and my intention with that was to like bring my work into like a new realm of professionalism or clarity, or just make something that was more digestible for a mass audience. But I think it was like I started working on this book, like it was based on this story that I wrote, and I started drawing it like right before the pandemic, and I got like 100 pages into it and felt that it was just like kind of unreadable. There was like something about adapting the writing into my comics, like the rhythm didn't feel right. It felt very like disjointed and kind of like just like a bumpy read. I didn't really like it. So I had to like put it away for a year and just like kind of think about it. And I've recently come back to it and like sorted out some of the kinks with it, and I think I can pull it together, but it was just kind of like antithetical to like how I work and just like kind of what makes my work good and like what makes my work surprising. I think both for me and for the reader, because like so much of the process for me is like that discovery at the drawing table, like just like having fun and like being, laughing at some joke that I come up with, or like trying to think of something really strange or ridiculous to happen next in the story.
No, I completely relate. I've tried to do this, and that's why I'm asking. I wonder if you had any advice, because it's like if I know the ending of a book, it just doesn't get made. And if I'm being flattering, I guess I could view it from two perspectives. Like, you can have a certain respect for the beingness of the book, and let it talk back to you in real time and let it develop alongside you. Or you can kind of like put it in a cage via the script and via all this like preliminary drawings, where it's like kind of at your behest, like whatever you want it to do, it'll do. For some reason, that's never appealed to me. But I understand this desire for professionalism, especially when you work in more personal ways. I think as you get older, you're like, how do I know if I'm getting better? This is the thing that confuses me a little bit.
Yeah. That was kind of my thinking too. It was like, I want to reach the next level and like work with a bigger publisher and like have more distribution and readership or something. But I don't know. I've kind of been thinking that like maybe that doesn't really appeal to me that much, or maybe it doesn't really matter that much.
Is that a financial thing, or just like a metric that can be felt? You just want to be like, can I sell this many copies of something?
Yeah, it's just like trying to reach the next level or something. But I don't know. Maybe it's like not really that important. It's definitely not like financially driven at all.
I get the desire for growth. I think that's why it's important to have peers who you trust, because they can tell you pretty objectively if you're getting better or worse or just stagnating, It's certainly the biggest problem when you make very personalized art. It's just like, how do I, especially when you're dabbling in abstractions, it's like,
yeah.
Because even if the reader is like comics, partially, it's like you just want to get a point across. But if you go super abstract and someone reads the panel completely wrong, you could still be like, well, that's just their interpretation. But meanwhile, you could be missing out on like fundamental skills of communicating. You know what I mean?
Yeah, true. I don't know. I think I've become like I was definitely like not concerned with that at all. At certain points in my career, like, like sometimes actively, creating hurdles for readers in books. But like with the book that I had written the script for, it was sort of like, yeah, just sort of an effort to make things more, just make a book with more clarity and like more readability. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that was like necessarily the right decision for me.
I think it's right in the sense if you're pushing yourself, testing yourself. I think I realized at a certain point, like, there's places for clarity and obfuscation within comics. And I think there's been times where I drew panels that in hindsight, like, they're just not drawn well enough to communicate what I needed them to communicate. Mm-hmm. And that's not a good thing. It doesn't add to the story, which is already abstract, like, in a sense, there's a way to clearly express a certain form of abstraction. And that should be the goal. Not just kind of letting because I know it's from laziness. I could have redrawn the panel. I guess I'm very suspicious of laziness now that I'm saying it. I don't know. Like, I know there's some artists who try to judo flip this and they're like, well, laziness is there's virtue in this or something. But for me, there is none there,
Yeah. I don't know. For me, it was kind of like, when I looked at a drawing that I didn't love, I just tried to accept it. I was like, I was in a certain place when I made this, and like I chose these marks, and that's just, it is what it is. It's like a record of the specific time that I created this page in, and I should just own it and let it be part of the book. And there's definitely like a lot of drawings in my books that I've let go like that. And some of them I look back on, I'm like, holy shit, like, wow, that's a really bad drawing. And there's other ones that I've like warmed up to or changed my mind on. But I don't know. I kind of just like try to let it be what it is. Like, let my drawings kind of just exist as they are.
I think there's a practicality to that, just to finish a book. Like, you can just
absolutely
keep going back and changing panels and going back and changing panels. Mm-hmm. But do you think every panel in a comic should be interesting visually? Should they all be home runs? Because this is something I've been trying to figure out, is like, when I read certain comic artists, there's clearly just panels that communicate and almost like echo other panels that are strong, but they're not trying to impress, in a sense. There's like a rhythm of excellence in respect to like the quality of the images. Like, there's kind of okay panels, then there's like a big thing. But in a lot of independent comics, I feel like, and I like this, that every panel is like an art piece unto itself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know. I think about like art and comics like as music a lot of the time. And I'm like, well, not every song is like pushed to 10 every time. Like, there is, really extreme music that's like very, in your face and really like, or very technical or whatever. But it's like, the best way to enjoy that stuff is like have it be contrasted with like, something a little more subtle, so that there is that sort of ebb and flow in the work.
Yeah, that makes sense from an album perspective. Like, not every song is the single, in a sense.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Yeah. There's like a structure to it. Like, I think that you need to like, take your shot when you need to have a panel that's really impactful and like really, really, important, but, I don't know. I also like don't really use panels a lot. A lot of my comics are kind of just like these explosive, splash.
That's true.
Splash pages. Yeah.
In respect to the books you're putting out, do you have any really clear metrics you try to grow with? Is it like double a page count, double the sales, or are you really just letting it flow at this point?
I don't know. I never really think much about like making sales. definitely just kind of like, I don't know. I mean, the zines that I do, like I've been printing less of them. I don't know. I just think there's like a specific cohort of people that like really enjoy my work and like buy every zine, but it's not as like it's not as like, I'm not like selling as many as I used to, I don't think. The last one I did, I just printed like 45 copies and like handed them out for free at TCAF, like a little short comic that I worked on recently. But yeah, not really like nothing regarding like page counts either. Like basically, I don't know, with every project, I kind of just try to come up with like a working methodology for it that is like fun, that I can sustain. And sometimes that changes like in the middle of a project, but I tend to do projects like in issues. Like my last book, Baby, that I did with Breakdown Press that just came out, was like 6 zines that I did over the pandemic. And a lot of my books have been like just collected mini comics. And I don't know, that kind of gives me the freedom to like stop a project if I'm not feeling it. Like, if I only go a couple of issues, I can stop, change gears and stuff. There's been a couple of projects over the years that I've had to stop doing just because like the working methodology or whatever wasn't like, I don't know, I wasn't vibing with it. So
interesting. You leave yourself an out in a sense.
Yeah.
Would you describe making comics as fun?
It depends. I have like a certain way of making comics that I really enjoy, and like I often kind of like just resort to that, which is like just drawing like an open, you know, amorphous page design, like splash page type illustration on like an 11 by 14 piece of paper. That's sort of like my fallback. Like when I don't know what to do, like I go there. But it's been other projects that I've done that have been like a little more laborious, like doing Don't Come In Here was a book I did with like a more structured panel format, and that became like, I did a little bit of preliminary work for that one, and that did feel like I was just like on an assembly line, like kind of like putting the pieces in place. And I didn't love that process. So like I started the book that followed that, Roaming Foliage, like while I was working. Yeah. Don't Come In Here, and Roaming Foliage is like really like it's really like experimental. It has like a lot of collage elements and stuff, and a lot of like overlapping drawings. And I did like lots of like really scribbly small drawings and like blew them up. And a lot of the text is just like random typewriter font, just like thrown onto the page.
I find that to often be the case if there's like a real rigid project, even if it's commercial, then there's some crazy explosive, like no fucks given experimental thing that has to balance it out.
Yeah, totally. I definitely feel that.
And whether that goes out into the public, it doesn't really matter, but I'm still shocked by people who can sit down and draw 300 issues of a thing consistently or whatever their whole life. There's just like, this is the project, Berserk or something.
Yeah, seriously. I could not, crazy. I could not do that. I was going through, like, when I was preparing for my class this morning, I was looking at some pages from my first book, Black Mass. And my partner, Jeanette, came in and she was like, holy shit, like, what if you had just been doing this the whole time? And I was like, wow. I mean, like, it's so different from what I do now. And like, I still see myself in it. And there's like, I think my most recent book, Baby, has like a lot of connection to Black Mass, and like a lot of the humor is like kind of similar, and like the way I approach the page is kind of similar, but yeah, it's just like so different.
If I recall, I read it a while back. It was more grounded in like in this world in some sense, right? Like there was kind of a punk-ish thing, like less abstracted. It's more like there's an identity almost.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, it's not abstract. Like, it's definitely like all the characters are like very cartoony, and there's like, punks and wizards and magic, and it culminates in this big like punk competition at the end. It's really silly. There's like more dialogue in it than I remember, like lots of characters, and like I feel like I just don't really I don't write characters anymore, really. But yeah, I don't know. I couldn't see. I couldn't see myself making a work like that anymore. I'm like, I have a hard time like remembering what it was like to make that type of thing.
Yeah.
After that, it just kind of like I kind of stripped away a lot of the pages in that were like very overdrawn. I think there was like lots of line and like lots of like goopy, drippy stuff, and I kind of like pared all that back. In my next book, Distance Mover, it like got a little bit more tight, and I started using like a fine line pen and stuff. And that one, because I was reso printing it, I had to like arrange things in a really specific way to get the print quality that I wanted. So it became like more designy, and like things didn't really overlap so much anymore. And kind of like shifted my whole thing.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, was she saying it from the perspective of, not that you should obviously do the same thing over a lifetime, but what do you think you were both trying to imagine? In other words, if you imagine you just drew like Black Mass till the end.
Yeah, I don't know.
Just like how like unfathomable it is to just do that kind of thing like that consistently.
Yeah, it's just like, it was me at a really specific time in my life, and it was like me processing like what I experienced as a teenager, and like just like all the stuff I was consuming at the time. Like I was really into like B movies, and
sure,
like playing a lot of Magic and stuff, and into like punk and black metal and stuff.
So it was more personal.
Yeah, but it was like, I don't want to say juvenile, but it was just kind of like my interest at the time. And then as I became more, as my tastes diversified, and like I got more into art and different types of music and movies and stuff, just like my tastes really evolved, and there was just different things I wanted to do in my comics work where like that wasn't really capable, like the world of Black Mass, like the style of drawing in Black Mass, like I wasn't really capable of doing certain things I wanted to try in that style. Like the way that the pages are just like, these kind of like amorphous, like blobs. There's no like panel delineation or whatever. It didn't really allow me to do a lot of pacing in the work. Right. And like when I started to think about Don't Come In Here, like I was thinking a lot about 2001: A Space Odyssey, and like, like I love that movie a lot, and just like, or even The Shining, just like how slowly paced those films are, and how they kind of just like let you like just kind of like focus on an image like slowly for like an extended period of time. And I wanted to like have the ability to do that in my work, to make something a little more like ambient.
Yeah.
And it wasn't really possible to do that in like the style of Black Mass or Distance Mover. So yeah, I didn't make a change.
Do you present this kind of thing to your students? Like, this is my career, this is how things developed?
I mean, I don't really talk about my work too much. I did like a quick like 10-minute overview today. I try to like present just like the world of alternative comics as a whole, rather than like talk about myself too much.
Gotcha. Is there an artist you look at and you go, like a comic artist who has like what you're talking about is the capability of certain styles and worlds to kind of explore a variety of feelings, emotions, atmospheres, etc., narratives? Is there a comic artist you look at and envy for their ability to kind of, their style allows them to kind of I don't know how to word it. Like for me, Miyazaki has this ability to touch on anything almost. And that's crazy to me. Like it could be he could be doing something funny, something scary, something deep, something not. And there's some comic artists I think of where I'm like, wow, that whatever they've created has allowed them to explore almost infinitely, you know?
Yeah. I mean, Michael DeForge is like, he's great at that. You know, he's got such a range in his work. And he does nonfiction well. He does fiction really well. He can be serious. He can be, you know, really funny. He's you know, a really great friend of mine. Yeah,
that makes sense. I think Connor Williamson is in there.
Yeah, Connor's work is amazing.
I don't know how to pronounce this man's name, but Olivier Schrouwen.
Oh yeah.
I look at that and I go, I feel like he can go anywhere with that. There's something really cool about that.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. I do envy that, and like you know, maintaining the stylistic integrity of the work in that is like, it's cool. Like Michael's stuff is like obviously pretty identifiable no matter what he's doing. I think my stuff is like pretty identifiable too.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like each of my books takes on a really different form, and like the style shifts pretty, I mean, not dramatically so much that you don't recognize it, but it's just like the form of the comic like takes on a different shape.
Yeah, the kind of constraints, the rules of the book.
The materials always stay the same. Like I'm always kind of like drawing with the same stuff. I've been drawing with a brush like since I was a teenager, and still do.
I remember you making some post about that, basically saying like always use a brush when you can, if possible.
Yeah. I push people to do it.
Do you use a fake digital brush?
No, never.
What do you do digitally? Like, what do you allow yourself to do?
Right now, just like color separations, really, and then like cleaning stuff up. Like
right, this is like screen printers. This is how I use it too, because I screen print a lot. It's like I only some weird purity thing. I feel like I only allow myself to know the amount of Photoshop abilities that correlate to what I have done or can do. So like if I can separate screens color wise and have the line here, like I know how to do that. And like, it's just a quicker way to it, you know? But once it gets into things that are way beyond what I can do, I start to feel weird for some reason.
Yeah.
Disingenuous. It's stupid. It's really stupid. I think there's a place for really, really digital
like
stuff,
you mean, you know? Like what you can do with analog materials.
Yeah. Basically, okay. Like if I'm separating colors for screen printing, I could do it manually or I could do it digitally. Or if the book's going to be printed in color anyway, like why wouldn't I just do the color here? But I don't even know how to use clipping masks. I was just talking to Neve about this. I almost have like some weird, I want it to still feel like you understand how it was made.
Right.
Or some shit like that.
Yeah.
Do you have these hang-ups with the digital realm, or are you like comfortable exploring in there?
Yeah, I mean, for a while, like I was like really leaning into it. There's like an era of my illustration career that's like really, really digital looking. I was using like a lot of like layer styles and stuff to like add all sorts of noise to my pieces.
Yeah, I recall that. That was cool.
Yeah, it was kind of a fun era. I don't know if I'd go back to that. I've kind of like taken a step back from digital work. Like I tried for a bit. Like I got an iPad. I tried to get into like drawing digitally, but it just did not work for me. It didn't feel like drawing. Like I didn't get the same experience from it. It just felt like playing a game, or I don't know, like just like manipulating a. I don't know. There's just something odd about it that just didn't. It did. The experience of drawing for me, like on paper, is like what I love, and it just felt like I don't know. I just didn't get the same experience from it.
I mean, that makes sense. It's not really checking all the same boxes.
No, definitely not.
There's no material resistance. It's the way I typically put it is like you're playing with almost one-to-one with the idea in your head. You're working digitally. Like if you want to do this crazy shit and move this thing around again or scale this down or draw this perfect box because you think that's the right move, you can do it. But when you work with material, it resists and it suggests things. And then there's also just laziness, like filling this whole area black and then going back in with this white. Like the odds of you wanting to do that physically versus like digitally where you could just paint bucket it and then start drawing in white.
Yeah,
There's all these like little frictions that dramatically change how you would make an image or a book just based on what flows out of the process, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Do you find that students are mostly digital at this point?
Yeah, they are. Yeah, like 99%.
Do they hear your message though? Do they get it?
I've had some students like email me like a year after the class and be like, thank you so much for pushing me to work in sketchbooks. And like I've filled like 5 sketchbooks since then. And it's like been really meaningful to me. And like that's great, but it's like, you know, it's only a handful of students. Yeah, I don't know. I think there's like something about I feel like students maybe think that like in order to be professional, they have to create their work digitally because that's what's expected of them.
Oh, totally, yeah. I think that's fair, you know. I remember my illustration teachers being like, you would literally just roll up with like a painting to the New York Times and then they would use this weird scanner. Yeah, that was it. There's like there's no revision. It's just like, this is the thing you're going to use it, you know?
Yeah.
I find that interesting that like the kind of increase in the managerial power of the art director because of the speed at which things can be altered.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably why I don't like, I mean, I do commercial work still, but like the neuroses of the client can just increase exponentially because they can tell you to change anything at any time.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah.
And that of course can happen within the student too.
Mm-hmm.
Like people being petrified by the infinite choices of a digital world, you know? Yeah.
That's something I try to instill in them is like I was saying earlier about my own work. It's like just trying to accept the marks you make and like not, you know, constantly undoing or erasing or like manicuring what you're making, just trying to like accept it and own it and draw around the mistake you made and like turn it into something good.
Yeah, that interests me, like the psychological ramifications of the way you make art day in, day out, and what you're saying, like there's acceptance to that way of working.
Mm-hmm.
And there's there's ways you can alter shit, but for the most part, there's no going back. And there's also just like a sacrificial element. Like if you use like handmade paper, then there's a preciousness to how you interact with that thing that does not exist at all with the digital process.
Mm-hmm.
Because you do use handmade paper, right?
I do, yeah.
So there's like, you like this intimacy as the holistic process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Comics are different than that, obviously.
Yeah.
What you were saying?
Yeah, I don't know. I just like the tactility of those materials, and I don't know, just like, you know, feeling the paper pulp between my fingers and stuff. And I like the danger as well. And like the matte medium transfer technique I do like involves like kind of destroying your work a little bit. And, you know, it's like kind of a gamble whether it's going to turn out properly and stuff. Like when I used to use this technique for illustration and stuff, it was always a bit nerve wracking because sometimes part of the drawing, you'd be like scrubbing part of it and part of the drawing would like wash away, or like the paint would break off or something like, and and then you'd have to like doctor it digitally or like try to do it again really quickly.
So are you transferring something you drew by hand?
Yeah, I have been doing that now. I used to only use photocopies of my drawings because I used to only do my drawings on like Bristol with a fine brush and stuff. And then I would, if it was an illustration job, I'd like do the drawing really quick, get it approved, like run to a copy shop, get a copy, and then do the transfer with it. But now I've been using just the drawing, the ink drawings I've been doing, and sometimes those fuck up too. Like sometimes the ink is like too watered down and like washes away, gets really faded. And, sometimes there's an air bubble in it or something. And like part of it just like breaks off or gets washed away. Or like sometimes I accidentally use gouache instead of acrylic. And then the gouache just like washes away totally.
Interesting.
I don't know. I mean, I try to make that mistake less these days by like paying attention to what paint I'm picking up, but
yeah,
it's a fun process. I kind of like that about it, and I like that you don't really know exactly how it's going to look when you're done.
Yeah, that's that same notion, right? It's like the element of surprise that even like the story can give to you when you're not scripting it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it definitely relates back to my comics practice. I like to be, I like to be surprised.
Yeah, I've always wondered if there's a selfishness to this in the way of like, I don't know how to word it. Well, it's like, I think in art making, there's sacrifices you make for the viewer, and then vice versa. There's things that you do for your own pleasure within the art making process. And I've always wondered, like, even with Miyazaki, like he does the same thing. He doesn't have a clear ending. And that's why some of his movies end and you're like, well, that wasn't very good, I think. Even though I love Miyazaki, I think there's endings where they just fall flat. But for him, it's, I guess, more enjoyable or necessary. That's why when you were talking about like trying to force yourself to do this more rigid book, it's maybe less fun, but I wonder sometimes if it's less fun, do you ultimately end up with a better book somehow? You know, like you've kind of like punished yourself into a better book, or should it be like a thing that flows out of love and fun, and that's how you get the best product, the best book, you know?
Yeah, I don't know. With this one, it kind of remains to be seen whether it's going to be like a success or not.
Baby?
No, this one that that I wrote.
Oh, the one that you were like 100 pages in.
Yeah. I don't know. A lot of my work is just sort of that. It's just like me enjoying myself and having fun, and I'm not really thinking too much about like the reader's experience.
It's like refined doodling.
Yeah, definitely. It has a quality to it.
Yeah, that's a compliment.
Yeah.
I think what's hard, you know, in illustration school, I remember, and this is a very real challenge. Like if you're into that kind of thing, turning that into a process that could happen within 6 hours within this parameters, people would have these crazy, beautiful sketchbooks, and then their illustration work would look super tight and dry.
I think I definitely had that problem like early on. I would like kind of choke a little bit.
Yeah.
My early illustration stuff. It took me a bit to be like, okay, I know what I'm doing. Like I got to trust myself in this and just like let it happen. Like not be too stressed out about what the finished product was going to be.
Right, because ultimately it's just an illustration. But it doesn't feel like that.
Yeah, I think that's really stifling for me, is like worrying about how it's going to be perceived. I think that can be stifling for any artist.
Do you have that with your music? Or you just let that? Because like I find that when your ego and your identity is not, let's say someone mainly makes art and then they make music on the side, there's oftentimes something more enjoyable about the thing that isn't like the primary self-esteem validator, you know?
No, yeah, I know what you mean exactly. Like in the band in Scooter J where I play drums, like I don't write any of the music. Like I'm just a player, and that feels really liberating. Like I'm just like a functional member of the band, and like the music is great. Like the guitar player Silver writes amazing songs, and my friend Brandon, who plays bass, is really talented as well. Just yeah, really, really enjoyable experience, like playing with the two of them. My solo project I do anonymously, and that's been kind of a funny outlet recently. I don't want to talk about it too much because it is anonymous. I want to keep it that way.
It's truly secret.
Yeah, well, I mean, like friends of mine know what it is and like that I'm doing it, but
do you perform live secretly?
No, it's just like a bedroom like black metal project. But I'm on a label.
A secret label.
Yeah, I'm on a secret label, and
how does that relate? How does like I don't know enough about black metal, but is there something about the pacing of your comics in black metal that kind of links up? Is it kind of like wall of sound droney stuff?
Yeah, it's very much like I guess like the energy that went into like something like Black Mass is like maybe I'm putting it into this music now. It's like definitely has it's pretty quirky. The project has like gone through different iterations. Like some of it was a little more brooding and like a little more ambient, but the current iteration is like a bit more like playful, but definitely like, you know, very, very like wall of sound, very like, I don't know. I don't know. I just kind of like that constant like hum of black metal. It has this sort of like white noise quality to it.
Yeah.
That I really enjoy.
No, it makes sense for the way the books come out, the black and white. What do you feel about black and white? Why do you think?
I love it.
Yeah. Why do you love it?
I don't know. I don't like, yeah, a lot of the works that I do, the comic, like, I mean, when I use color, I use it pretty, you know, I use a lot of like neons and a lot of pretty garish colors, but in the comics work, I don't know. I just kind of like that starkness and the way that you can kind of like still see the, you know, the imperfections in the ink and stuff. I don't really want it to look very polished. I want it to look kind of like raw.
Yeah. No, I completely understand. It's more immediate.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many times I see pages, like even Jack Kirby pages, where I'm just like, that just looks so much better black and white. Or even the pencil. The pencil can have that kind of, especially Renaissance penciling. It's just so beautiful. Mm-hmm. And then the painting is somehow not as satisfying to me.
Yeah, there's something about adding color to my comics pages that like sucks the depth out of them. There's like this perceived depth that I have, like sometimes in my black and white drawings where I'm like, the way I drew this, like insinuates all of this depth in the piece, but then when I add color, it like sucks all that away and like makes the page look really like small and like cloistered or something.
Interesting. Yeah. So you've been in a art relationship for a long time.
Yeah, that's right.
This is a rare accomplishment, I find. Although artists date each other to last a long time is impressive.
Yeah. My partner Jeanette Lapalme, we've been together for like, I don't know, 14 years, 13, wow. 14 years. We were friends for a long time before that, which helps. We worked together, like we met at art school, and like her and I and our friend Chris Kuzma had like a comics anthology group, like art collective called Wowie Zonk.
Yeah, I recall.
We did for a number of years. We released a bunch of comics anthologies under that name, and then the three of us curated a space at the Toronto Comic Arts Festival for a number of years. But we've been, together for a long time, always working on projects together and stuff. She runs a gallery in Toronto now called Tutun. 998 Bathurst Street, just north of Bloor. Used to be a Weird Things gallery run by another Canadian artist, Johnny Peterson. He moved out to Victoria, BC during the pandemic and asked Jeanette if she wanted to take over. And she's been doing that ever since. She's like coming up on 2 years in the space.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's been great. There's like not really a lot of like community arts spaces in Toronto anymore, and definitely none like catering to sort of the weirdo, like comics adjacent type stuff that we kind of like operate that world that we operate in. So it's been really great.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that's a really interesting topic to me. I've seen artists date who seem to be competitive in some ways, less cooperative, and it definitely does not work. But as an artist, simultaneously, it's kind of hard to explain what you need to a person who isn't an artist, how you might need a large space of time away from someone to draw or something.
Yeah. We definitely have like an understanding that we need a lot of like personal space and time from each other.
Yeah, yeah.
Just to to focus on our own projects and stuff.
I think non-artists can take offense to that. Just be like, what? Or like being in the zone, like I need to not be interrupted for 3 days or something because there's something happening.
Totally.
It's an interesting challenge, it seems to me, for artists to cohabitate and to just like, but when it works, surely it's very beautiful. I'm sure you guys inspire each other and feed each other.
Yeah, definitely.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, like we're, constantly like looking over each other's shoulder at what we're doing. And like, whenever I finish anything, I'm like, Jeanette, come and look at this and approve of what I've done or tell me it's bad or whatever. So it's great to have someone whose opinion that I really trust to look at my work. It's been, like just an asset.
Yeah, it's incredibly valuable.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think it works? Like, you're just both mature enough to like not I don't know. Like, because you don't work. I remember she makes like little objects and paintings, right?
Yeah,
she makes comics too, right? Sometimes
she used to be like much more of a drawing focused artist, but she still does drawings and paintings, but has moved on to like sculpture and ceramic, and now she's like kind of focused in curating the gallery and running the gallery day to day. So she's not making as much work as she used to, but she still creates a lot of painting and stuff. I don't know. We don't really have like, neither of us is like a very competitive person, I guess.
That's good,
like we don't really like see each other as being like competition or anything. We like to work together, and like we did, we worked together a lot on projects before we were a couple, and then like we've worked together a ton like as a couple. So
that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's inspiring. I'd love to interview her about running a gallery. It's a very interesting thing to do.
Totally. Yeah, you should.
It's artist run spaces. Very interesting to me.
Yeah, it's a really unique space. It's like, it's a store, it's her studio. It's like, it's very personal. She's really great at curating a space, like her studio, and we both have studios in our apartment, and whenever anyone comes over, they just like marvel at her collection of tchotchkes and objects. She's like a great curator and collector of objects. And she's kind of like, now doing that in this kind of public space, and people are, really responding to it well.
That's awesome. I'm going to try to get there when on a Friday.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
If I can. You're not, there's no way you're from this suburb where I'm going to, right? I'm going to a suburb I think it's an hour away from Toronto called Whitby.
I am from Whitby.
Why?
Yeah.
Why would everyone be from Whitby?
That's so funny. When you told me that you were headed to outside of Toronto, I guess like Oakville or like Richmond Hill or something. But yeah, Whitby, that's where I grew up.
So weird.
Yeah.
Is it huge?
It's a pretty big suburb, like definitely like really sprawling. It's just like houses and houses forever. Not really much to do in the way of culture or much of anything. It's just houses and roads.
Yeah, no, I just have half of my family immigrated to there for some reason. It's like New Jersey and there. And I haven't seen them in quite some time. That is so strange.
Yeah.
I went there when I was young, and it was just, I mean, I'm from a suburb, so it was just more of the same.
True.
All right, so what should I do in Whitby?
I don't know.
What's the coolest, what's the unknown feature of Whitby?
Honestly, for me to say something good about Whitby would
be tough.
Be a revelation. I don't know. I had a tough time growing up there. It's like, a very homogenous suburb. Not a lot to do. Like I never learned how to drive, so I had a tough time getting around or doing anything. And like as a teenager, like going out anywhere, like the police were like omnipresent and like stopped you wherever you were and like hassled you. It was pretty, I don't know, pretty oppressive place to grow up. And like I said, I I don't know why I never came to the city much, but I just like didn't feel like I could.
And so you've lived in Toronto for a very long time?
Yeah. I've lived in Toronto for 17 years now, I think.
Right on.
I moved here when I was like 18 for school. I've been here ever since.
That's cool. So you're very rooted. You've got things figured out.
Yeah. Do you
feel that? Do you feel that? It sounds like it from an outside perspective. Like it sounds pretty stable. That's a good thing.
Yeah, in a sense. Jeanette and I are like in a pretty good spot. Like we have great apartments downtown. We both have studios and stuff. But at the same time, it's like, I don't know, like at a moment's notice, we could get evicted or the people that own the building we live in could sell. And I think that's kind of inevitable. And
sure,
we might wind up having to move. And like rent here is like so much more than it was when we moved into this spot. Like we've been here for 10 years.
Wow.
So yeah, I don't know. It's kind of up in the air. Like I'm not really sure. I don't know. I feel like I've got my feet on the ground, but there's always kind of like, you never really know.
No, you never know.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it was good talking to you. I'm going to try to see the spot.
Yeah. Great to talk to you as well.
Thanks for your time.
Take care.
Thanks for giving it a listen. Music by Dory Bavarsky and Mingja Chen. Next up, we have Sam Vanellomirsch.